Hi, and welcome back to This Week in Voice, Season 4, Episode 11. Today is Thursday, November 21st, 2019. We are really thrilled to have two special guests on the show. Before I get to them, I will mention we've had some major announcements this week with Project Voice. If you don't know what Project Voice is, it's time you learn. Project Voice is the #1 event for voice tech and AI in America, coming the week after CES. Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Samsung are all presenting sponsors alongside Mercedes-Benz, Mayo Clinic, and many others. We're expecting 3,000 plus attendees. That includes you listening to the show. That includes the two guests that are here. They're going to be part of the proceedings, and it'll be fun to have them there. We're excited about it. To learn more about it, go to projectvoice.ai. So we are thrilled to have two fantastic guests on the show. Our first is Mary Alice McMorrow. Mary Alice, say hello. And take it off mute.
Hello, how are you?
Doing good, doing good. Mary Alice, thank you very much for being part of the show with us. You have had sort of an interesting seat for a lot of stuff that's happened over the last couple of years with your role at Earplay. You do super interesting work. Tell us who you are. Tell us what you do. We appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Yes, my path is probably a little less traditional than some, but I'm a brand marketer by trade. What does that mean? That means that I've been in marketing a very, very long time and have finally found my way to voice through my friends at Earplay. For those who don't know who Earplay is, Earplay has been a leader on the interactive audio storytelling side of the voice community. I met them about 2.5 years ago, I'm not kidding, through LinkedIn. But here in Boston, they've been leading a charge for almost 6 years. Definitely innovators, pioneers. They were, in fact, Bradley Developers of the Year at Alexa Conference last January. But I've been fortunate enough to work with John, Dave, and Bruno, who are, again, bringing that interactive storytelling to all voice-enabled devices. But my role with them is an advisor, again, focusing on marketing. And the flavor of marketing that I work on does focus a lot on the brand and consumer. When I talk to people that I meet at conferences in voice, I tell them I'm a 2.0 girl. So I am part of the voice community that has come along, who's interested in helping to grow what's been built and what's been pioneered. So I'm very excited to be here today to talk about what's in the news this week.
Excellent, and we appreciate you being part of the show. I love the description 2.0 girl. You know, I'll leave the girl. You can call yourself whatever you want, but the 2.0 part, that resonates because that's sort of where we're at. Mary Alice, thank you for being part of the show.
Thank you.
Our second guest is Lauren Helmer. Lauren, say hello.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Lauren, you and I go way back to Birmingham, Alabama. We graduated high school together. Really, really fortunate to have Lauren edit more than just weather and music. You like how I have this copy just
yeah.
here? Yeah, that was completely unintentional. You know, Lauren is a phenomenal editor, phenomenal publishing person, and we wanted to have her on the show. Lauren, tell us who you are, tell us what you do, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so thank you again for having me. I am a book editor and freelance writer, and I actually went to school at Boston University, Mary Alice, where I went to a conservatory style program for acting. So I have that background as well. I signed with an agent in New York City. And so as an editor, what's really great about that is that I'm able in books that have more of a narrative to sort of infuse story into it and dialogue and emotion. And so that's where I'm you know, kind of melding all of my passions together in book editing, and then also editing all different types of things. So what's really great about more than just weather and music was I don't have an Amazon Alexa or any sort of smart speaker in my house. And so, as Bradley knows, it was a really big learning experience for me, fact checking and learning all the little nuts and bolts of this brand new world for me. So that was really interesting.
Lauren, I think extremely highly of you. You have the misfortune to have worked, to work with me, but you recovered well.
Oh, stop.
And I'm excited for what 2020 will bring, and certainly anybody looking for content need to give you a call. But the thing that's great about you, Lauren, is that your background, in the liberal arts and just with everything that you did in your collegiate career and then thereafter, there's a lot of people. There's a very healthy intersection between voice and voice technology and conversation design and all of that stuff with the types of things that are in your background, language arts, essentially. And so it's what I'm trying to say is we're happy to have you on the show. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So with that, we will get to the news. And story number one, musical chairs. Sonos acquires Snips. Spotify opens free tier to Alexa devices. And this is interesting. I was just putting the news together late yesterday and had no clue that Sonos had acquired Snips. So Snips was one of the earliest guests on Voice First FM. I had them on a show called Artificial Intelligence that we do, sporadically, to put it generously. And just a fascinating conversation with Rand Hindi, who's the CEO. And here they are. Just yesterday, the news hits that they were acquired for $37.5 million. But this article dives into a lot of detail on different things oriented around smart speakers and music. And Mary Alice, I'm going to start with you. What, this article sort of bounces all over the place. What did you take away, if anything, from this? What should we be thinking about when you see some of these movements out of the market?
I think about this a lot. I've been following music and what it means to consumers for a very, very long time. One of my favorite commercials of all time is the original iPod commercial back in 2003. And if you really think about it, we're kind of at another point in music where consumers continue to be so deeply involved with it. I think it's wonderful that acquisitions and also content going on to different platforms is accelerating. I think it's actually really important, specifically for the voice community, because I feel that music is like trial. It's a way to invite more people to come into the community to, experiment, to try it, and to participate, that's not requiring a lot of work. So I think the streaming side of it is important. I'm glad to see, our friends in the hardware side really committing to bringing it to their audiences, to the people who own it. But basically, when I think about it specifically from a marketing standpoint, I think it's really smart what's happening because we need more people to have ways into participating in voice. And, this is a sign almost every week. There's some news about streaming and particularly music right now, as well as podcasts, that I think is showing us all that everything is heading the right direction.
Lauren, I'll ask you the same question. From your standpoint as a voice layperson, you don't have the smart speakers in your house. You haven't been moved to add those, prior to our project together. But obviously, you've seen what's been happening. When you look at an article like this and you see some of these things going on, just share with us your thoughts on anything you gleaned from the article, as well as just whether this moves you more toward being in favor of having smart speakers in the home or not.
Yeah, so the part of the article that struck me was the Spotify becoming, and I thought, well, that would be That's my dog in the background. My apologies.
No, that's all right. That's better than Alexa going off. That's normally what we have going off about this time in the show is someone's Alexa device goes off. So no worries. Keep going.
Okay. But I personally enjoy Spotify. So for me, that was like, well, that'd be great. It would just make the user experience with the speaker more streamlined, in my opinion. So that as a user, as a consumer, I guess it sort of drew me in from that aspect.
Yeah, cool. And so, I'm interested. Sonos has sort of been making some interesting moves. And I love the acquisition of Snips. I'm going to be interested to see how they incorporate that into what they do. But yeah, seeing Spotify, add this free tier, that Spotify's always had the free tier, but people being able to hear, and access the free tier through Alexa devices, nothing to be upset about there. I think that's music to my ears, not to be stupid about it. But Spotify, there was rumors that Spotify was creating a smart speaker of their own. And it wasn't just rumors, it was actual news. And we haven't seen that. That's probably 6 to 9 months ago. So I agree with y'all. It all shapes up to be a nice sort of prologue to what ought to be a pretty active 2020. Any closing thoughts on this story?
Just one thing, I really hope as all of this continues to unfold that we help the consumer follow along. Things are happening so fast in voice. I think about this often. It's kind of hard for somebody who's just joining. They have that first speaker to keep up. So I'm looking forward as things continue to become more accessible and people become more interested, that there's also some educational marketing along the way to help people follow along, because I think that can only help us to get to deeper experiences, much like your book, deeper experiences in voice. And I think that's something that's missing right now is a little bit of educational marketing.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I was gonna bring this up. People are listening to the show don't know what I'm doing. I'm holding the book in front of the camera. Read this.
Amazon Alexa. More than music and voice.
There you go. Excellent. This show is already, this is vaulted into the top 99.9%. Yeah, no, I completely agree, Mary Alice. And I hope that it just goes to what you said to start the show, like the 2.0 mentality. That's what we all need to bring. And I'm right there with you. Story number 2, gearing up for Black Friday, deals abound on smart speakers. So once again, it's been like a steady drumbeat. Every time there's some major consumer event like Amazon, whatever the Amazon Day, or whatever that thing is they do in the summer, Black Friday, the holiday season itself, we've just sort of come to expect that there's this avalanche of purchasing of smart speakers. And every year for the last couple of years, we haven't been wrong. We've been more and more right. And, but it's tough because you don't want to take it for granted and you wonder, when will it stop? When will we, the people who have been the early adopters, when are they going to have enough of these things in their house? For the people who have been reluctant to get in the game, what's it going to take for them? I think we're learning that too. And so, Lauren, I'm going to start with you. What were your thoughts when you looked at this article, and just share with us some of your perspective on, anything that you saw, anything that you've seen with Amazon or Google, any Black Friday things that might have caught your eye?
Yeah, so I think obviously, like I said, I don't have them. So these deals are very enticing for me. And one thing that caught my eye was I didn't know what tile stickers were. And it was almost suspect. Some of the deals were so good. I was like, what are they trying to give these away for such cheap prices? And all you have to do is buy a sticker and then you get the whole thing for free. And then I looked up tile stickers and I just found I found that very interesting. It was almost like they had tiles on their water bottles, and I just feel like there's a lot of things being like lost. And I don't know that, I don't know, I have mixed feelings about that, but I feel like the ask my buddy type, the productivity type. I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling. You might have to.
No, you're good. You're good. So the tile thing is interesting. I happen to see that myself. I've had people buy, I had a family member buy me a tile, and I never used it. And so my wife started using it. And then I had somebody else say I needed to get one. I was like, so I'm keenly aware of that device. And it's only a matter of time stuff like that becomes voice enabled, because there's a lot of things you could do with that. But I'm curious, Lauren, from your standpoint, we might have talked about it a little bit. I don't think we really dove into it. Is the reason that you have not purchased an Alexa device because it simply is uninteresting and it's just something that you never really even thought about? Or is it because it was a conscientious rejection based on its, surveillance technology, and the thought process along those lines? Which one was it more of?
It was more of the sort of surveillance aspect of
Sure.
being listened to and hearing stories in the news of I just being able to be accessed and listened to in some scary sounding scenarios. So I still have a lingering feeling of mistrust. And for instance, the tile sticker made me, figuring out what that was, it was sort of comical. It was like watching an ad where, they're trying to sell a new type of mop, and the actors are forced to make it look like it's hard to use a broom, like those, that's what it made me think of. It's like, you're going to lose your teddy bear. You're going to, I think it's good to have skills like knowing where your keys are and knowing, keeping up with things. And the guy had so I don't know. I'm very skeptical still. And I don't know, I don't want to offend anyone in this industry, because there's a lot of exciting.
It's far from offending. We're craving perspectives like yours. And that's what Project Voice is about. Frankly, that's what it's about, because everybody understands, and now I'm getting into sort of my spiel on Project Voice, and I didn't mean to, but I'm coming right back to you, trust me. But with Project Voice, there's everybody understands the optimism and the potential of the technology. It's easy to understand from an accessibility standpoint. That's easy to understand who might benefit from that. It's easy to understand how, in a lot of different use cases, it can simplify your life if it works properly. And if in all of these things, if the trade-off is not that you're, giving up your privacy, more than you've already given up with this. So, I'm right there. And that's, Project Voice is about bringing that skepticism and fully fleshing out the good and the bad and the ugly. So that's, I think you're the first person on the show who has not had a smart speaker at all. It's fantastic. How did it take us 4 seasons to do this? I don't know. So, because this is, you want to talk 2.0, you're looking right at it. Yep. 2.0 is people who don't have a smart speaker yet, who are sitting there saying, why? Mm-hmm. Like, why would I do that? Like, at any price. And I take it, Lauren, that, so I would be interested to hear you sort of expound on, because you talked about stuff being free and they're trying to give it away. That's what they're trying to do with these devices. And Amazon themselves had conversations on, do we need to give these things away for free? Same thing for Google with the Google Home Minis and whatnot. And in many cases, they've given them away for free as part of promotions. So they sort of disguise it. But the thing is, when you give something away to somebody for free, it has no value. So it's sort of easy come, easy go. And so they've got to walk this line of making it, giving it this sort of price, but then looking for all these different strategic opportunities to give it away for free. My question for you, Lauren, just to follow up is, share, just sort of expound on what would it take? You are skeptical of the surveillance, which many people are. That's not anything new. That's not a surprise in the slightest. We just went through a project where you're much more aware than most of some of the functionality of Alexa devices specifically. In conjunction with some of the Black Friday deals, I get the sense that you're unmoved as a consumer. And of course, I'm going to be sending you some devices, you can use them or not. But that aside, what would it take for you to enter the smart speaker ball game, or is it just not possible? I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah, so I have answers for this. So I first of all, seeing those deals, it did make me skeptical. I was like, especially coming from that dubious nature that I have surrounding the surveillance aspect of it. I'm like, why do they want me to have it so bad? They're basically giving it to me for free, So it made me even more skeptical in a sense. But from my editorial experience working on more than just weather and music, and I told you this in the process, learning about all of the very useful things that it could do almost made me want to just forgo, like I have with the smartphone, just forgo any privacy, because there's so many cool things that it does. I mean, as a mom, the things that it, could help me with my children, the chompers, just having them have brush their teeth for the right amount of time. I mean, there's so many useful little everyday things. Like, I would love to be able to tell my vacuum cleaner to vacuum my house at 5:30, so just learning all those things. I think it's an educational curve, like Mary Alice was saying.
That's interesting. Mary Alice, you just heard all that. What's your, that's almost an identical restatement of what you just said a minute ago about it, how educational marketing is at the forefront of all this. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll share with you, I was in the toy business for 15 years. So when you talk about Black Friday, that's pretty much our most important day as well. I understand why they're giving them away. They're competing in a universe that's actually outside of voice. They're just following standard marketing and sales practices. So, reading this article, that was very familiar to me. But I think what kind of is underlying to me when I think about Lauren, and I love referencing this, Edison Research has put out a couple of studies talking about how people feel about actually either owning or not owning smart speakers. And what's interesting is the privacy aspect is equally concerning to those who own and don't own. Isn't that remarkable? Equally concerning to those who own smart speakers and who don't. So I think privacy is a big issue that collectively, I think as a voice community, we need to lean in on, maybe some to educate, but also some to kind of make sure for the future we're serving as many people's needs as possible. And I think if we have a healthy conversation, be it, at Project Voice or elsewhere, I think those are going to be really important in 2020 if you're talking about, how many people are going to buy those second or first, smart speakers. And so I think that's going to be huge in 2020 as far as a topic that we're going to hear a lot more about. But going a little bit further, something that comes to mind when I think about these deals, I would love, and I'm sure there are people, maybe our friend Brett, who could help us with this, but I think we need to measure this year under $50 purchases, for the holiday season and over $50. And the reason I use that is almost all the deals and discounting that go into that $20, $30 range. I think those are more likely to be new people who are just coming in. And I would like to see the pace of growth of those new users. They could be second users too, but I would really like to watch that. But then if you kind of measure this season who's over 50, when you start getting into smart hubs, smart homes, connectivity, really immersive adoption of voice, I'd really like to see kind of how those two are moving, and they all seem to be lumped together. So that's just something that's on my mind right now is, how is this playing out in the home? How is this unfolding, and what are the opportunities ahead? So that's one thing I'd like to see at Black Friday, is maybe some more slicing and dicing of some of this data.
Yeah, I would too. I was just in Best Buy the other day, and I saw whatever that HomePod competitor for Alexa is.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the Studio? Whatever that big old thing is, I think there may be two of them. There's a subwoofer, and then there's one that I think is just a big speaker. They may be two different devices. I should know this, and I just don't. But those were premium priced. I saw the Echo Show, the bigger one. I want to say that's like what, $150?
Yeah, you're really talking $150 up. Some of them have built-in, like Echo has a hub built in on some of the higher, pricier models. And then there's a whole nother world of these other devices that are helping different languages of different devices to coordinate, into one way for you as a user to control it. But, I'd be interested to see what's going on for people who have become comfortable with their voice experience and their devices and are now growing those devices. I think that would be interesting to hear more about. I
agree. And I think one of the things too that you're sort of, that you'd be tapping into, whoever did something like that, is that I really haven't seen this discussed very much. I've heard it talked about briefly at a conference or two, but the fact is that when you look at smart speakers and you see that Amazon's leading the charge, it's well known about Amazon's customer base that they're more affluent and they're more educated. Mm-hmm. And how much of that is, the adoption of the technology, how much of just the sheer inherent nature of Amazon's customer base may be disguising, maybe it's disguising the true uptake of smart speakers, or maybe it's not, but I think that it's every conversation around Amazon's, and some of them do, some of them don't, but every conversation around the smart speaker adoption, the Alexa ecosystem needs to, like, the very next sentence out of somebody's mouth needs to be who that customer is. Because, I agree, it would be interesting to see $20 to $30 purchases versus $200 purchases in the ecosystem. Who's buying it? Because it doesn't feel like, and we saw the devastating numbers from Google in the third quarter that came out. I think that's probably just a blip, but Google's got a different sort of audience. Mm-hmm. And how many are those people willing to buy at that higher echelon? You get the feeling like they're not, because every time you turn around, you don't see Google advertising those higher end products like Alexa, like Amazon has done a little bit more of. So yeah, I agree. There is some slicing and dicing to be done, and it would be interesting to see. I'm sure, yeah, leave it to Brett or leave it to somebody to do it.
And I think one thing to the audience participation that you were talking about, the mobile voice usage, so to step away from smart speakers for a second, just recently, Edison, the smart audio report, mobile is off the charts. It's just growing at leaps and bounds. So I do think there's participation in voice by everyone. And I do think smart speakers is kind of a part of that. And I think slicing and dicing any or all of that would be really fascinating.
Lauren, I have a question for you before we get on to the next story. What type of phone do you have? Do you have an
Android.
iPhone? Oh, you have an Android? Okay. Yeah. Do you have Google Assistant on your phone or no? Or Bixby? Or none of the above?
No, I don't use it. Sometimes it turns on when I'm transcribing interviews, and it drives me insane.
Okay. It just turned on my phone, and I'm trying to please stop. I was just curious because mobile's another touch point. So if you could deactivate it on your phone, you would. That's what I'm hearing. Okay.
Yes.
Good to know. That was great. Great commentary all the way around there. Did you have closing thoughts there, Lauren?
Yeah, I was just listening to you talk about the audience of Amazon, and that was something that struck me in the article, about these devices being sold at Walmart, which I didn't realize they were. And, I go to Walmart, when I'm, low on money and I need something at a cheap price point. And I just don't see that the customer who's always going to Walmart being someone who, and I think for the most part, people who are struggling financially, I don't see them as users. And so I think that's a big segment of the population that needs that education piece as well, and that, because as a, I write about interiors sometimes, and the smart home aspect, that makes it, that's another way that it's come into my consciousness, is seeing all of the uses that it's, our homes are becoming smart. And that makes me even more want to have a speaker that can say, turn the air conditioning up or turn it down or dim the lights, and so from that aspect of living in it, that brings it much more into my consciousness as something that's valuable.
I love bringing up Walmart because I remember going into Walmart. It was the holiday season this past year, and they had a huge display of Google Home Minis, which is like the equivalent of the Echo Dot for Google Home, for Google, the small thing. And they were bundled with this children's read-along book from Disney. And I think that was just it. It was the book in the package and then the Google Home Mini. And it was this bundle. And they had this app, what they call Google Action as opposed to Alexa Skill. This Google Action that you can ask your Google Home Mini to read you a story. And you can follow along with the story in the book. And, they had this really nice looking display, and looked like maybe one person over the whole month of December had bought one. and that was about it. I haven't sort of seen any reporting on that, but it did strike me as this is wrong place, wrong time, sort of thing going on. And it also, it touches on something else too. And I talked about that. This now is on the publishing side of things. And I talk about this in almost every talk that I give where I'm talking about specific use cases. There's a sadness about something like that it turns people off, because when someone, you're one of two people. Either you're walking the halls, the aisles of Walmart, and you're not even dreaming of buying that. You're just hoping that you make it to the cash register with enough to buy what you something to eat. Or you're in Walmart and you're looking around and you're looking at that and you're saying, well, isn't that sad that someone needs that to read to their children? Either way, it's a lose-lose. And so, I had those thoughts as I was looking at that. And oh, go ahead, Mary Alice.
Yeah, I had the opposite thought. I saw the exact same display, given my background in a lot of kids marketing. Anything that helps a kid to read, I think is important. So I think that actually was wonderful. I think the thing that, was notable in that particular situation, it was a big cardboard box in the middle of an aisle, is it wasn't curated. I mean, there's no mistake that Amazon is curating their device experiences, now at their physical stores, but it's highly curated. So I think in that particular situation, it was more the lack of the opportunity to explain, what this was and how it worked. It also was on a scale of like 1 to 10, it was like a 2 version. It wasn't very immersive or interactive. It was more like a read along, which is very common for kids. So, that's where I think we've missed a little in voice, is we haven't really thought through, how magical, voice can be for kids, and really, kind of presented that as something to invite kids into. Most of the stuff out there on skills now is pretty young. I'm personally a fan that I think if we're going to live in the world of Jetsons, like Lauren's talking about, an automated home, I personally, talking to like Amy at Tellables, why aren't we spending more time on that 10 to 15-year-old, that middle school avid reader, or that middle school, tech savvy kid who is going to buy that home someday when they graduate from college. They're going to live in that automated home. And so, again, I think the Walmart piece was probably not able to execute, but I think it was a good step. But I'd love to see a lot more from voice targeted at middle school children, because I think they're the ones who should be interested not only to have that in their lives in the future because of all the convenience that Lauren was talking about, but also because we need those skills. I mean, the voice industry is going to need those skills, and those are, the students who can actually have goals, to be a part of the voice industry in creating the content or coding or building the devices that are going to be a part of our life. I personally believe in a big way.
Yeah, I hear that. I think that's a huge blind spot. It's like middle school and adolescence, because, with younger children, we've seen that, among other things, you expose younger children to this technology, basically these computers, and it improves their speech, it improves their language. We've already seen it. It's been reported multiple times, and that. The Walmart thing, it is interesting, and like so many things with Walmart, it's just thrown out there. Here you go.
Yeah.
And with no, and the presentation of it was, hey, look, here's these 2 things we decided to shrink wrap together with no explanation. So yeah, there was some marketing deficiencies, but yeah, I agree. Anything that gets the written word in front of people is a beautiful thing. It's just as you said, and as a theme, it turns out to be a theme of the show 2.0. When they do that again, hopefully they learn some things about how that didn't work the first time. Excellent comments all across the board here. Just go, even before I get off of this, is there any voice application that targets adolescent students?
Yeah. A couple of efforts come to mind. If you go to the Echo Dot, the kids edition, there are a few skills, probably more on the game side, that are interesting. Like SpongeBob, believe it or not, translates all the way up to college.
Okay.
Not necessarily that skill does, but I know teenagers who have tried that skill. So I think there is some interest in traction. I think personally, we need to approach it more like a book series, because if you take the 10 to 15-year-old, what they're consuming for content, besides, everything on their phone, but they're reading series of books, 8 books, deep into the fandom. And I just think that there need to be some brands step up and actually show people what good looks like. My wish list would be Harry Potter. I would love to see a Harry Potter interactive audio narrative. And I believe it would be, record breaking globally. But that's what I think we need right now, is somebody to show us what good looks like and invite that middle school consumer in. And I think it could be a really, really big deal for the voice industry.
I would just love to see exposing middle school students to the technology more. And because having it wash over them, what happens? Especially ones who are marginal at reading, maybe deficient, maybe flat out illiterate. What happens? I'd love to see that.
Have you ever tried the You Choose from Capstone?
Yes.
Yes, that was made by Earplay, and it's out. Yes, it's in the book, but it's really great content. They are so expert in schools, so to have the opportunity to experience that learning in a very immersive way in voice, I think is a great example of what voice can do. And then, of course, we know, different people are championing some of the educational efforts to figure out how to bring it into schools with respect for privacy and anonymity and some of those other challenges. But, like our good friend Julie down in Chattanooga, people are working to make this work. And I think it is really important to bring that in front of kids. And it's going to happen, but it's going to take some time.
Schools are a whole other ballgame. You have plenty of people say, get this out of here. And then you have some pioneers willing to take it on, like a Julie. Lauren, your last words on this, and then we'll get on to stories 3 and 4.
Yeah, no, I just, actually, this kind of ties into what we're talking about, but also the next story. But with the 10 to 15-year-old set, I have an 11-year-old daughter who's very gifted. She's reading at a college level. And I feel like this Voiceflow app, which we'll get into, but being able for her to develop these stories, and you were saying getting some of these younger children involved in the future of this, I feel like, she would just eat this up, seeing these, non-coded things where you can like Skillflow Builder and Voiceflow. I think that is a game changer, honestly. And I would love to introduce those to her and just watch the magic happen, and even getting those, Bradley and I went to school together, and we were there when Oregon Trail was, we were in the first computer classes in our town, and there was the green typing and the Oregon Trail. And, I feel like there needs to be classes on this for kids because it's the future. And, I think that also their younger brains, I'm skeptical and I'm sort of, trying to open my mind to it and understand it all, but they're the key.
They are, and they're growing up with the expectation that one talks to computers. And if you talk to a computer and it doesn't talk back, then you're talking to the wrong, you're interacting with the wrong technology, and you need to get the right technology in here. And it's interesting. And even more so, to go back to sort of this Amazon, Walmart dichotomy, we're seeing that there's a classist sort of thing going on with smart speakers, and it hasn't really been talked about that much, but we sort of danced around it here on the show. But the fact of the matter is that exposure to smart speakers, as well as all those things that surround them, like these no or low code applications like a Voiceflow, alters your trajectory, just flat out. So, it's important that sad in my words, sad because people weren't buying them, display in Walmart, that is a sign of children not being at the same level that folks who have, these Amazon Alexa devices or whatever, whatever smart speaker you're talking to, or even talking to one on the phone, will have, because it's a different sort of thing. It opens your mind in different ways. Yeah. Great comments on that. Oh, go ahead.
One more thing. It just makes me think of, the classist aspect of it. If my daughter and someone in a more disadvantaged community had the same education and access to these tools for development, and you just think of like the skills like Lemonade Stand and Amy Summer, The Pitch. You think of tools like that could teach you how to gain financial independence with just a flash briefing, and that you are giving people, these tools on this platform that's just endless possibilities,
Sure.
And it would help that class's situation altogether, you know. And
Yeah, and as we get into 2020, that'll be just something that needs to be talked about more, and I'm sure we will at Project Voice. We're going to abbreviate the rest of the show. I'm going to combine the two stories that are 3 and 4. And Mary Alice, I'll get your thoughts on that. And then story number 5, Lauren, I'll get your thoughts on that. Story number 3 is the VoiceBot.ai story of the week. As I always say, if you don't know what that is, that's your problem. It's a correctable problem, fortunately for you. Stop the podcast, go to VoiceBot.ai, fantastic news and commentary site for all things voice and AI. Voiceflow lands investment from the Alexa Fund. Voiceflow is one of the shooting stars of this voice firmament. I'm a big believer in what they're doing. They've got a fantastic team. Honored that they're going to be at Project Voice. I'm a big fan. Story number 2 from VoiceBot.ai, which is our story number 4 for the week. Matchbox.io acquires Alexa skills from Opearlo. Now, this is an interesting one because it sort of shows one company divesting while another one is investing. Mary Alice, when you see these stories, 2019's been marked by a lot of investment in the space, exponentially more investment in the space this year than we saw in 2018, which itself was exponentially more than 2017. There's this hockey stick curve going on with the VC investment in the space. Your thoughts, one way or the other. What do you glean from either these two stories together or either one in isolation?
Yeah, first of all, definitely want to congratulate both Voiceflow and Matchbox OI, because both of them have built something and pioneered and brought something forth that's clearly gotten some traction. So I know all of us in the voice community, even people who aren't as familiar with these, are happy to see that investment, because it shows kind of milestones to the growth that's ahead. But one thing I'll say that both these struck me as a marketer particularly is it also is kind of pointing a little bit to some of the challenges going on inside of voice right now. In particular, the Matchbox article, there was a quote that was talking about, that this acquisition is great because bringing, Find My Phone audience cross-promoted over, to the voice apps that they already have as a way to cross-promote and grow, the actual voice experiences. That points out a challenge. It's challenging to be found and to be discovered. We've talked a lot about that, throughout the voice community. So I think that's one thing that it points out to me, is we haven't solved that yet. Making it easy for people to find, and those who build make it easy to be discovered. So I think that's going to continue to be a hot topic. On the Voiceflow side, the article was talking a lot about this is a strategic investment versus a financial investment. I think it's a sign that people are ready to move past transactional. We're seeing that we need to go to more immersive experiences where people see the value in what the voice technology can do and what it's been able to do for years. It just hasn't been shared yet. And so I see both of these as ways to kind of continue to push forward. But I also think we need to, continue to work on together discoverability, and also, that idea that we need to educate.
If you wanted to, you could, great commentary, I appreciate that. If you wanted to, you could spin the Matchbox story as a negative for Amazon, if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. Because here you've got, this company that created some really profound skills, including Find My Phone, which to me has a real argument for being the number one third-party skill that exists. So, you can debate that, doesn't matter. It's a top one. It just suffices to say that. And here they are, one of the co-founders exiting voice completely, the other one doing something else you don't really know, and they're divesting the skills. Amazon needs to be following that closely, and they need to learn as much about what happened there, however they priced these Alexa skills to sell. How on earth you would do that, I don't know.
I think what's missing from voice, and I'll go back to kind of my intro. I'm a brand marketer. At the end of the day, my job is to create demand for the product, service, or entertainment content that I'm focused on. And we haven't had demand creation yet in the voice industry. In other words, showing people and leading them through to the conclusion that they can find things and enjoy them and vote, like this, don't like that. I think people are way back down the early experience, continuum right now. And I would love to see some really aggressive marketing in 2020 to show people what's possible. I'll give one example. I had the opportunity with Earplay. We were at South by Southwest last year. And, with an Earplay story, you're able to choose outcomes and, play through the story. And then you go back and play it again, and it'll be a different story, but all within the same storyline. And when people would listen to what their voice could do, controlling the story with the high, quality music, sounds, and human voice, they were like, this is like a feature film in my head. We need to get the word out that voice is very powerful and it's endless in the things that it can do, and start showcasing that beyond just simple transactional things that we can do today with voice.
Amen. Lauren, we're going to wrap the show up with you. Story number 5 from Harvard Business School. It's no joke. AI beats humans at making you laugh. I love including a story like this at the end of a show. Your thoughts as you took a look at this, given your background, what'd you think?
Yeah, so, I went to acting school. I was on the improv team. I know about laughter. And there's the skeptic in me here. So I took issue with this on a few levels because it's based on people just reading the jokes, and that, or the computer reading it, or the people reading it and guessing what would make. And a joke is integral to voice, actually. The way it's the tone of your voice, the personality of the person delivering it. If you love the person, you'll laugh more because you adore them. Or if maybe the person just delivering this really bad joke makes you feel sorry for them, and it's just funny seeing this particular person tell a joke, even if whether it's funny or not. And so to me, that whole aspect of it, which is very much tied to voice and person, was kind of left out of the equation, and I found that interesting. And then, because that's just reading a joke. Yeah. But what makes it really funny is that the voice and the delivery, and also the analytics part of it, the predictive analytics, I think those are great. And I think there's a huge, growing market, especially with there's just so many television shows now, you can't even see them all. And so having, I value it when Netflix gives me those predictive analytics, but I also pine for the days of Blockbuster. Again, here I am with my old school. I loved sort of looking at the picture on the front of the cover and reading the back, and the process of discovery and the power that I felt, and the time, the feeling of that you can breathe and just walk through and meander and discover things. So I feel like there's something lost in that. I do recognize that it's it's incredibly helpful and when everything's moving so fast. But also, one last point about this article, they touched on how marketers use that to, you see the Google ads pop up on the side based on how, they're following you and they figure out what you like and what you don't like. Well, I'm an editor and I fact check the weirdest things on a daily basis. I mean, from browning guns to types of shoes, it's just all over the place. And so the things that are marketed to me have nothing to do with who I really am. I mean, it's just wackadoodle ads for me. So
you're probably getting a lot of Amazon Echo ads after doing this book.
Yeah. Yeah. So so those are my main thoughts on all that. And that's, again, probably the skeptic and the non-user in me.
No, that's great. I'm a big fan of humor. That's why at Project Voice we're having a roast of Brett Kinsella of VoiceBot.ai, and my part will be funny, at least to me. So I make that promise. But it may not be funny to the recipients or anyone else. No, yeah, humor has a lot to it. It's complex, and and really what underlies what you just said. It's funny how with voice, and just understanding this technology, we come to understand just how complex human interactions and humanity is. The voice, you have no appreciation for the complexities of the voice until you see something like a Canary Speech, which will be at Project Voice, shameless plug. Canary Speech, their entire thing is helping people have preemptive almost healthcare by listening to your voice. You don't have to be saying anything in particular, but listening to your voice as measured against a baseline, and there's a lot of hidden data there that they can know if you're, maybe the sound of my voice right now signals that I've got a warning sign for some disease, and I would never know. There's all sorts of interesting things that are dormant. They're latent. They're waiting to be discovered in our voice. This hidden data of the body, that's just one example of many. And with jokes and humor, the complexity of, as you said, of personality and tone and delivery and timing. It'll be a while before an AI can compete with Chappelle or whoever, or so I agree. I'm right there with you. I appreciate both of y'all setting this time aside to be on the show. Fascinating perspectives. Mary Alice, it's a pleasure. Lauren, this has been a long time coming. Honored to have you both. Thank you very much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
For This Week in Voice, Season 4, Episode 11. Thank you for listening or watching if you're watching on YouTube. Until next time.